Welcome, everybody. We've got Matt Mason in the house. Needs no introduction whatsoever. I am so thrilled that you're here. So, Matt Mason, if you don't know him, he is the previous editor of in chief for RWT magazine. He's recently transitioned into a part-time role at Palm NFT as a strategic advisor, but now he's full-time in Broadside and getting the first scoop on camera since after his transition. So I'm so thrilled. Welcome, Matt, to the show. How are
Great.
you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Like always down to chat to people like yourself in the community who are just so active and such a positive. Just the energy you bring to COWLS, to Broadside, to everything I see you in. Psyched to talk to you, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. So yeah, how has it been since the transition? I guess there's been a lot of like, you know, people taking hits at you for not being in spaces lately, and just that general kind of transition period. How was that? How was that for you?
Yeah, it was great. I think I don't realize when people are taking shots at me or not for spaces. Like, it's been 1 week since I've been full time on Broadside. It was a really tough decision to leave Palm NFT Studio, to leave that full time role there as chief content officer. I love the team at Palm. I was the first employee there. Like Dan Heyman is the best CEO I've ever worked for. I'm so proud of that company and all we built there. The team that's there is like family to me. It's some of the best creatives I think you'll find in Web3. But as Broadside grew, it was like I have two full time jobs and I have one brain, and this is like breaking. I can't. What do I do? And there's an amazing team at Palm, and a lot of resources, and an amazing team at DC. I'm building some other great projects with UMG and some other partners we haven't announced yet. But there's a big team on it, and Broadside is, me and Vector and Partial and Charlie, if you count Charlie. But that is, I was like, I have to go do this because this needs watering now if it's going to grow. And Broadside was just taking on this life of its own. And we'll get into this more, but we see this opportunity with Broadside since we minted. Like before we minted, this would be a great storytelling project. We can grow this world and da da da. And then the community have just taken it in this other direction that we weren't thinking about. And being, ever since I've been involved in startups, when that happens, you're onto something. When the community grabs something and says and
Mm.
makes it better, that's when you have to drop everything and push that, because that's culture. That's something earned, not given. That the community has done with Broadside, where they've sort of said, "Look, you go in this direction. There's something else here." Anyway, we'll get into that. But yeah, long
Yeah,
story.
no worries, no worries.
Having a great time.
I wanted to ask you actually about the book that you've written in 2008, I believe, The Pirate's
Mhm.
Dilemma. So if you were to do an updated version today, and I know that's like
Mhm.
it doesn't do it much disservice, but off the top of your head, what are the trends that you saw that did come true for a start, and what would you add to it now if you were to project another 10 years or 15 years down the line? I don't know if that's
That's a great question. The thing I'm struggling with is I can't remember what it says in that book. I haven't read it for like 12 years. But no, I mean, the thing I was arguing in the book, this was pre Spotify, pre Netflix. The thing I was saying was record labels. If you build something that looks a bit like uTorrent or LimeWire, you will smash it. Hollywood, if you build something that looks like all these pirate TV sites, you will smash it.
Mm.
And
I was
Spotify,
there. I was there. I was
yeah,
torrenting. When I was a kid, I was downloading everything illegally. Back then, I was sorry. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was back then. But yeah, now
yeah.
everything is licensed because you can subscribe to things now, and that's come true. And yeah, how do you squash piracy? Well, no, you just copy its style, right? It's like you learn
I
from
mean,
it.
if you look at the first version of the Netflix streaming app, it was based on the UI and UX from the piracy sites that it was imitating.
Mm,
100%. Spotify, the team that created Spotify, It's the same team that created uTorrent, the largest music piracy site in the world. They sold
Wow.
uTorrent to BitTorrent, the company I used to work for, the creators of the original BitTorrent client. They sold uTorrent back to BitTorrent, so BitTorrent owned uTorrent and BitTorrent, which is like owning Pepsi and Coke.
Mm,
Um, and they used the money to start Spotify, and they built a peer-to-peer torrent client, and they just did licensing deals. They copy piracy, and they made something legit, and they made it better. So it happened. It happened in music, it happened in TV, it happened in Hollywood,
mm,
and there was sort of countless examples. So I think if I was to update it today, it's like, yeah, look, it came true, and you're still sort of seeing that, like, whenever. But now it's like back then that mindset was breaking entertainment.
mm,
But the thing that Satoshi was referencing when he created the white paper and thought about Bitcoin was BitTorrent,
yeah.
right? It was peer to peer, put intelligence at the edge, take away the middleman. The idea of BitTorrent is the idea of Bitcoin, is the idea of crypto. And so now when you look at where we are, like, the reason I'm in NFTs, the reason I'm in Web3
Mm,
is because this is how you disintermediate everything else. And it's
mm,
like, look, like, Netflix and Spotify are not like decentralized. The world was not perfect. Like, things definitely calcified into, like,
mm,
a raw, like, Spotify's a raw deal for musicians. Mostly that's about the labels. It's not about Spotify. Netflix is great. Streaming services are great. They've got their own set of pros and cons. Um, we're never going to stop decentralized. We're never going to democratize all the things we need to democratize. You
mm,
can always keep getting better at that. It's like,
mm,
you can always keep getting better at writing or martial arts. It's one of those things where you're never completing these games.
mm.
But the same philosophies, they still apply, right? Keep decentralizing things, keep disrupting them, keep thinking of ways to make it fairer for people, keep finding ways for people to get in and go from 0 to 100 miles an hour on their own. Like, to me, that's always the mission.
So when you say that Broadside is this book's spiritual successor, what do you
Mhm.
mean by that?
I mean, it's literally the successor. So after I wrote the Pirate's Dilemma, the genesis of Broadside as a project was Penguin Books in the US. Penguin published me in the UK. Simon Schuster published me in the US. But Penguin US team reached out to me and said, "We love what we did with Pirate's Dilemma. We're doing this book of short stories. It's called Generation Activist." This was 2008, after Pirates had just come out, or was just about to come out. And they said, "Look, Barack Obama is writing a short story for this book, and we want a bunch of other young authors to write short stories, and we're going to do a book of short stories. It's going to be called Generation Activist. Can you write a short story about piracy?" I was like, "Okay, yeah." Like, like, we talked about that. What about piracy in the future? Like, oh shit, yeah, like 3D printer scaling and, like, in vitro organic materials. Like, if you take what if you can copy anything in the real world the same as you can with MP3 files? That what if the economics of abundance replaces the economics of scarcity? That's fucking crazy. I want to think about that. So I went away and I started writing this story, and I was getting really into it. And then they called me back and they said, "Listen, Barack Obama, his team pulled out. They don't think he should be writing a book called Generation Activist, so he's trying to become." But you know what? I'm bummed out that I won't be in this book, but that's a really good point, and it was definitely a good trade-off. And I'd rather have him president than be in a book with him. So then I had this, like, half-written story that I was kind of into, and I was in Hollywood taking some meetings about Pirates Dilemma TV shows, and, like, had an agent set up all these, go and talk to these people, da da da. And DreamWorks were like, "We like this piracy in the future story. Let's kick this around a bit." So we started developing it, and I turned it into a screenplay. And they're like, "Yeah, this is great, but it's like a $300 million movie, and you're not James Cameron." I'm like, "What the fuck is a decentralized hero?" Because now I'd gone into, like, this is anonymous. I was looking at, like, Anonymous and 4chan. Like, all right, there are thousands of kids. They hack this game and they just fuck up the entire world. But no one really knows who they are. You don't really know who the hero is. And they're like, "Wait, how do we cast? Like, what? Like, okay, yeah, we don't think we can do this." So now I've got a half-finished screenplay, and then, like, over a period of years, it sort of Broadside just keeps getting sort of kicked around, and I sold other screenplays and I did other deals. And like at the same time, I'm just doing a million other things. And I'm one of these people. I've always got a drawer full of half-finished, harebrained schemes, projects, startup ideas,
Mm,
and that's great. I love waking up in the morning with a terrible idea and writing it down, and then looking at it 6 months later, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not. Most of the time, it's not.
mm,
The thing with Broadside, there was just a couple of people. One of them was Vector Meldrew, who I worked with for. He and I were the part of the founding team at Rewind magazine back in the day, and I showed him like an early draft of Broadside, and he was like, he would like just hit me up every few months, like, what the fuck are you doing with Broadside? And another person who anyone in the COWLS community will know who would do that is Caitlin Burns.
mm,
So Caitlin was writing the Bibles for like Halo, Transformers, Avatar. She's working at Starlight Runner with Jeff Gomez. These amazing people who really pushed the boundaries of storytelling in Hollywood. And Broadside was in a commercial deal with Starlight Runner for a while. Like we were developing it together, and that's how Caitlin and I really sort of met and became friends. And then she was always one of them people who's just like, what the fuck are you doing with Broadside? And so I was like, all right, like I should try and do something. And it just could never, there was never a way to like really get it. And then Vector was just like, come on, man, I'm running a 3D studio. We can like, there's got to be something we can do.
mm,
Developing it as a treatment, all kinds of stuff. And then when NFTs hit, he was like, this is an NFT project. I was like,
yeah, it's like
oh,
so
okay, yeah.
that's why it never fit in that kind of, or surprisingly, if it ever became a movie, that would have been it, right? There wouldn't have been, it probably wouldn't have been an NFT project because that would have been it, right? But
Yeah, it probably would have been maybe it would have been a book, and then
mm,
maybe you sell the screenplay rights, and maybe they make it into a movie, and maybe the movie is a success. Like the way
but then
that,
but then you've sold the rights to someone, I guess, and
yeah,
then you
you're
didn't
done.
have all this freedom that you have today. So
Exactly. Like I wouldn't change a thing. Like the amount of times Broadside was like knocked back, and people were like, no, we don't get it. It's too big. It's too cerebral. It's too complex. They were all right. It was designed to be an NFT project. We just didn't know what that meant 10 years ago.
the funny thing is, it doesn't even stop it from being still becoming a movie or whatever, because of the commercial rights that you have it, right? It'll just be under, probably under someone creates it or whatever, right? Like right
Now,
now.
now 7,000 people more have the rights to create a Broadside movie, including us. And if they're using CC0, you don't even have to own a Broadsider. You can just go and like. There's so
Yeah.
much stuff that people are doing Broadsiders that we didn't imagine, but we
Yeah,
weren't
I've seen that
gonna do.
trailer, right? From somebody with someone did a mini 3D movie. I remember that. Oh, I wish I had it on hand. Oh, I wish I had it on hand. So with this one, I just want to move on from this topic, and I just wanted to address the current market situation at the
Mhm,
moment. Because so there was this run up, right? So I don't know, I'm gonna so the minting phase, let's say.
mhm, mhm,
So during the minting phase, because I remember this. I remember the hype was like, and I think with any NFT project, right? I'm start like there. It's unreal, like the trends that go, okay, there's the hype phase, and then there's suddenly there's everyone's there, the flippers, the collectors,
mhm,
they're like in a race, and then they kind of sell to each other or whatever, and then the hype goes up, 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 and then
mhm.
yeah, I guess people come out, and then like right now where we are, well, the funny thing is when we're talking now, we're actually just above mint. I believe we're just about mint price again. But it was wild because 2 days ago, 3 days ago, um it was well below that, and people got out, and then now people have swept, and it's nuts. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm gonna stop here, and I'm just gonna say, what does it mean? What I'm gonna let you answer this is,
Yeah, yeah.
is this what it means to build in a bear market? And I'm gonna ask a question on volume as well, if you can. Is there anything that you can comment on that? um because I guess it comes to play, like people's sentiments do depend on the floor price, even though, just a disclaimer, obviously right
Mhm.
now these are valueless tokens. Again, I'm kind of answering my own question, right, for in this
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
but
Mm.
I'll let you I'll shut up now, and I'll let you kind of talk around this, because I feel like I need to get this out there
Yeah,
more than
yeah, yeah,
anything
yeah.
else, before
Mm.
anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, look, if you go and look at the history of almost every blue chip NFT project, you'll see, some kind of roller coaster of emotion. If you go and look at like Mint where they are now, there's a few projects where it's really like Apes pretty much went up, or right now Kid Called Beast pretty much going up. But like, go look at Pudgy Penguins, go look at Goblin Town, go look at Cool Cats. It's always like this, and I've been involved in a few projects now where, I've seen the same thing, like Damien Hirst, Currency Project. First project I was involved in, 600 million in volume, first 2 months, right? Like
Wow.
crazy. Like, so where, Broadside going up and down, like volume, it doesn't bother me because I know something everyone else doesn't. And that's just where you have to stay, right? It's like, and you can't say, I don't, if you know me, if you follow any projects I'm involved in, we don't talk about things until we know we can actually deliver.
Mm.
We hint at them, but you can't. And like, I think if I like the thing that, sort of the way I've approached floor prices, I've been involved in the content industry for 20 years. And it's the same thing, right? If you're a musician, you can be emotionally, you can just be a slave to your chart positions, or like how radio is receiving your single, or like how is your album doing in Belgium. There's always a stat you can like emotionally get attached to, and if
Mm.
you start doing that, you'll start making bad decisions. That's
Mm.
never been more true with any type of media than the NFT space.
Mm.
All these flippers, all these paper hands who are going into a project, buying it for like a tiny thing, like flipping it for a really skinny margin and moving on. That's fine. People are doing that. It's part of the whole ecosystem.
Mm.
But if you start making decisions based on that, your project's going to zero.
Mm.
You can't think like that. You've got to build, and the floor price might dip or it might skyrocket. And most times when it does, it's got nothing to do with anything you're doing as a founder.
Mm.
And you can't focus on that. Like, you have to focus on the big picture is, are you building, like, this is how I think about any NFT project, including Broadside. Who are we building this for?
Mm.
If that person ever is going to sell it, who are they going to sell it to? Why would that person buy it? And if the answer is because that person's going to be left holding the bag at some point, it's a Ponzi scheme. You're selling tulips.
Mm.
You have to focus on the big picture. You have to focus on, what am I building here? Why is this worthwhile? Like, we were talking before about skins in games. Like, when you start thinking about ecosystems,
Mm.
like the one type of value that nobody talks about, because we haven't really got there yet with NFTs, and the most valuable thing I think that NFTs offer is sentimental value. So let me explain what I mean by that. I'm
Mm.
going to have to like redact a bunch of names here. So was working on a project for a AAA game that didn't come out, that may yet come out. Obviously, AAA game companies are all quite scared of NFTs now. But working on this project, and a member of the team working on the project said, me and my dad used to play this game when I was a kid, and my dad passed away when I was young.
Mm.
If I could still have that character that me and my dad played with now, like, I can't tell you the amount of money I'd give for that, or just the fact that I could still hold it, what it would
I've
mean
got
to me.
chills. I've got chills
Right?
because I think a lot of the hype. I'll just say this and to not ruin your flow, but
Oh no.
a lot of when I say NFTs or collectibles, however you want to call it in other platforms, right?
Mm,
It is actually a lot of it is nostalgia. You're like, well, I'm gonna go for that drop because this means something to me, you know?
right.
And I think you're right, Matt. I mean, I never like personally, I went into Broadside no like feeling like, all right, I enjoyed the raves. I really dig the art, right? And I'm
Mm,
like, and I really well, truly, like, ever since I've been in the batcows ride, I trust you and the team, right? So I'm like, this is a no-brainer for me. I'm gonna go grab these nice tokens. And then now I'm like, now I realize actually, well, maybe as we go on this bumpy road, which it looks like it will be a bumpy road because
mm-hmm.
we're all realists here.
Yeah.
I don't, this wasn't one of those, oh man, I'm here and I'm rich 2 weeks later, right? Kind of thing. but I think now I'm kind of trying to see, like, maybe if I let myself just get immersed with the experience you guys are offering, then maybe it'd be something more, you
Hmm.
know. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Let me tell you what I can tell you without giving away too much about sort of where this is going next. So in the last 3 months, like we minted out this collection, great. Um, it's cool, and we started with storytelling, and we've got a core group of a couple of thousand people who really like this story.
Mhm,
They're coming to rave in the metaverse every single week.
mhm,
That's not right now. Like last year, first 5 months of last year, first 5 months of 2022, $150 billion was invested into the metaverse. And all we've got to show for it so far is, a giant concert sponsored by a big brand at a Super Bowl. It's always like a giant thing
mm.
because it's,
Fortnite, right?
yeah, it's Fortnite, and it's,
Fortnite and the Super Bowl halftime show,
yeah,
which
it's
is
that's it.
an NFT.
And those look, like, I'm not knocking Fortnite or the Super Bowl halftime show. Those are both cool things with big audiences. But
Mm,
the thing that Victor and I know from creating cultures, being involved in the start of cultures like dubstep or grime
mm,
from the ground up, is that it doesn't start with a Super Bowl halftime show. It starts with 50 people in a room doing something that, for the love of it, and they don't care if anyone else ever cares about it. And when we saw what was happening in the bunker, which we didn't build, which
mm,
we weren't thinking about,
mm.
and then we was like, all right, let's do the spaces in here. So, oh, okay, this is what the metaverse is supposed to be, right? So this audience is telling stories together. They're role playing together. Like everyone's got a job. We had this flex work thing in Broadside. We started putting those job titles in Discord, and next thing we know, it's like, and we didn't start that. That was Ellis. That was the team.
Mm,
Like, we want to
mm,
role play. We're going to start to take on characters
mm,
in a live role play. There's a whole ecosystem of that going on in Grand Theft Auto on Twitch. You've got people like Sheriff Eli, a bunch of amazing role players, a whole ecosystem that's out there. And like, I don't think I don't think Rockstar's really, they got Rockstar's not paying too much attention to that. But I've been looking at that, like I've been really obsessed with that ecosystem for years before NFTs. Like, so you've got role playing, you've got people partying together, you've got story, you've got all these ways you can sort of extend this thing. But the thing that we're sort of seeing is this is like we're building a culture with a community that's organic, an organic culture in the metaverse
mm,
that scales in all these directions, that's fun. And you don't need to know what an NFT is to understand why this is fun,
mm,
right? If I can give you a broadside character and you can then go and party with it, or
mm,
go and play a game of capture the flag, or go and role play with your friends, or go and craft some objects, all of that stuff is made possible by blockchain and NFTs and all these new metaverse platforms that let you have lots of people in one space at the same time. But none of that stuff is complicated. None of that stuff is a DeFi game. That's
mm.
just fun. And like
When
to have built something, sorry, I'll finish, but like to have built something in 3 months where the community is just sort of,
it's
you feel,
crazy how it's only been three
yeah,
months, Matt.
in 3 months,
It does not feel that way, does it not?
it feels
It
like
feels,
years. It feels like
yeah,
years.
it feels like ages. I feel like I don't know why. I feel like we're in hyper time. I feel like
Yeah,
I don't
welcome to
know.
Web 3.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like every day is a week.
Well, I'm actually gonna go here now. And actually, it looks like I've covered a lot of my points already. Um, but you just saying that, I feel like it's starting to make sense about. I feel like I'm gonna jump to another question I had like later on, which I'm just gonna put it here because we're here.
Mhm.
Um, building on top of the batcowl slash VV community. Do you think that that was something that you felt was because it played on the nostalgia that you said that, or I wouldn't even say nostalgia or loyalty, but people buy it to collect, right? People buy it because they like it, not because they want to flip it. And does that is that the sort of thing you were going for to begin with?
with Broadside, I mean, it's
Mm,
just my whole approach to Web3, to all of it. Like if you're creating something and you're purely thinking about people are going to flip this to make someone's going to sell it to someone else and they're going to make money, that it's not going to work, or it's going to work up until a point and then it's going to rug. The community is going to
mm,
rug you, or you're going to rug them, and it's just not how I think about Web3. Like to me, Web3 is a new way to connect and have fun and build these social objects that do things that you couldn't do before. It's not like the speculative nature of it, I think, is quite destructive at times. It's a
mm,
fact of life. It's part of why it works. It's part of why I get to quit my job and do Broadside. Like I
mm.
couldn't do it if we weren't doing it this way.
What
It's amazing.
what do you think about what is Web3 to you, and why do you think like right now people are so, I wouldn't say even people, right? Like a lot of people came in for the money because they've seen how it run up. There's so much money
Mm,
being thrown at it, and just because companies are throwing money at it, is it because we were talking about this in spaces, we're like,
mm,
is it because the vision is, you know, a lot of jobs have been, automated by robots or whatever, and now all of the thinking jobs or most of the jobs are at home, and now you need a way to kind of enter some sort of metaverse where, you put on your VR goggles and then suddenly you're in an office and then everything's cost saving. You don't have to go into an office where the whole building is run. It's like inefficient. You're at home, you're here. And
mm,
do you think technology wise, do you think we'll get there? Because I know that other platforms are also looking at this. Like, okay, these goggles are coming late this year. This is going to be the mass adoption that we're looking for. I don't know if I'm hitting the right points here, but
mm.
to me, what is Web3 to you? And like, tell me, Matt, because you've been here, you've been looking at this trend for like years more than I have. So,
Hmm.
how close are we? And or do you think we're still like slowly getting there? Where do you think we
Yeah,
are?
it's hard to say. Like the one thing I know for sure is none of it depends on goggles. Goggles may happen, they may not happen. I've always been sort of bearish on VR.
Right.
I've
Right.
never had an experience with it where I've been like, oh yeah, like I'm doing this every day for the rest of my life. It's fun. It's fun to like play a game, but then run into the wall at some point because you forget you're playing the game. And yeah, the Apple headset coming out later this year. If one company can change everything at scale quickly, it's Apple. So everybody's going to be watching that.
Mm,
But if they don't do it, I don't think that's the end of the metaverse. I don't think that's the end of Web3.
mm,
Um, like to me, Web3 is it's about putting control and intelligence back at the edge. It's about giving fans and creators ownership and agency over the things that they choose to either create or give their attention to. Like we operate in this attention economy, and in
it's an
Web2,
attention academy for sure. We
it's an
are.
attention economy, and in
It
Web2,
does.
big companies captured most of the value of your attention and my attention. Right? You're doom scrolling Instagram, you're on TikTok. It's just like a huge,
The next Netflix show. What is the next hot show? We have to watch that now.
just like boom, 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 like, and it goes and like, look, Web3 is no different. Like, it's still an attention economy,
Mm,
but more of the value is being captured by creators at the edge
mm,
than by sort of centralized platforms. And this gets into creator royalties and which platforms can do what. There's lots going on there. Um, but it's about decentralizing and democratizing creativity is where we're starting, but then it's going to get beyond that, right? It's like NFT it's starting with art, it's starting with games, but it's really the tip of the spear for all of crypto. And really, what crypto is about, like once you get past the Lambos and all the idiots through too much money on Twitter or whatever, it's about righting the wrongs of inequality, and it's about democratization. Like if it happens the way that Satoshi wanted it to happen, the way that I think the people in the space who are thinking clearly about it, it's like this is about making the world a fairer place. And it's really hard to connect that to pictures of animals that you're trading on OpenSea,
mm,
but
mm,
it's absolutely that's what those pictures of animals on OpenSea are about. This is the start of something that like we talked about the floor price of Broadside, but the entire space is just like up and down this roller coaster, and everyone on the outside is looking in and like, oh yeah, told you it was a load of shit. I heard everybody say that in 2013, 2017. Like I was CMO at Kraken in 2017, sorry, 2019, 2020. I could have taken my entire salary in Ethereum at 150 bucks. And I was like, nah. Like, I wish I'd done that. Because,
Mm,
you know, the moments when everyone's fudding,
mm,
that's when you get rich, if that's what you're trying to do.
mm.
I'm not really here to get rich. I'm here because I think this is a way for the whole world to get slightly better.
Wow. Again, I'm just, yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so we've covered like Broadside as an experience piece, really, at this stage, and how, it's only been 3 months and it feels like forever. Do you have a sort of a timeline for Broadside, or
Mhm.
or anything like that? Or is it just a continuous thing that you kind of?
Yeah, we've got a timeline for sure. The next 2 weeks, you're going to see some really big news from the team. We're working on some stuff that I can't talk about yet, but I'm super
No, of
excited.
course. No, that's cool. Yeah, yeah.
We've been dropping some hints on Twitter and places.
Yes, you have. Yeah,
Uh,
even Galbraith was there. I was like, what's he doing? Why is he saying something? All right, so.
yeah, people know what we're doing. Beyond that, yeah, I mean, look, we've got some really big plans for Broadside.
Mm,
And just want to touch on like the reason we say that it's not an investment, it's an experience. Listen, this is financial advice. If you're looking at a project and any founder says this is an investment, stay the fuck away from that project because that founder doesn't know what they're talking about and they're going to get thrown in jail. You can't say this is an investment.
no.
You can't say the value of this token is going to go up. All of them, Bored Apes, Punks, they are valueless utility tokens in the eyes of the law. The team that wrote the contracts for us wrote the contracts for the top 5 collections in the space. We take the legal language very seriously because we want to be around for a long time and we want to build. Look, like, I guess with Broadside, there are 7,000 tokens out there, give or
Mm,
take. There's tens of thousands of episodes and the forward, the open edition. The plan with Broadside is Broadside is a story world that we want everybody that we are building on Web3 that we want everybody in the world to be able to access if they want to.
mm.
We don't want it to always be 7,000 tokens and that's it. We're always going to take care of the OG collectors like in the world that we build. And there will always be a velvet rope put out for them. If you know how I operate, like things are done before, you understand when I say crown jewels, what I mean.
I do know. I do know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, look, we're building, between Vector and I, we've got really deep links into gaming, into the worlds of entertainment. Ever since like we haven't really talked to anyone about our plans yet because we were just sort of internally this last week. We're like, all right, I'm full time. Like, let's go. Let's get our heads down. Let's really plan some
Mm,
stuff.
mm.
A bunch of people called us and said, "What do you guys need?" Right?
Oh, this is what I'm pointing to earlier as well about it can't be nothing because people are here watching it. Okay, maybe they're here for the money today, but why are companies throwing money at this today? Well, maybe because we're all here right now as well. Um, so this Dazzle ship rebrand, can you tell us like a
Mm.
quick minute about why that happened? And what was
Yeah.
the? Sure, please.
Yeah. So Dazzleship is the name of the 3D animation studio that Vector's been running in the UK for 10 years.
Mm,
And to do Broadside well, we needed to set up a legal entity. We set up a company in the US. Like, what should we call it? So let's just call it Dazzleship. I love that name. I've always loved that name, and it's sort of perfect for what we're thinking about building next in terms of this Web3 metaverse studio. Like Broadside is the flagship Dazzleship project,
mm,
but we're really learning a lot as we go with Broadside about what does it mean to build a studio for Web3 for the metaverse, because it's not the same thing as a traditional game studio or game publisher or movie studio or any other type of content production company where like you do all the work, you sell it, you get paid, it goes out, and that's it. Like with Web3, the hard work starts the day after you mint. If you're doing it right, if you don't do it that way, your project's going to zero. We've seen that happen 99% of the time, right? The way we think, the way I've always thought about Web3, or the way I've thought about Web3 since I've been in Web3 the last couple of years is it's not growth at all costs, it's community at all costs. You have to look after your community. If you look after your community will look after you, and it will grow with you. You have to do the hard work the day after mint. Like this is an ultra marathon. You have to build. You get to build in a very, very different way. And if you look at the way game publishing works or the way Hollywood studios work, there's never really been like a financial incentive to invest in community the way that you have to in Web3. And so, working on a lot of big IP NFT projects, I've seen that like how much of a learning curve that is for a lot of companies that are not structured for Web3, because they've been structured for all the other things that they do, and that's the right approach. But how do you build something that's going to scale franchises like Broadside in a Web3 environment where the rules are quite different, and still be able to plug into all the Web2 things? Go and do a scripted show, go and do a license the Nerf gun, do whatever, right? Like there's a million things you can do that the rules, but this Web3 thing at the kernel, the rules are different. So Dazzle Ship is really it's a vehicle to launch Broadside. Broadside is the first franchise we're thinking about. It might be the only one we ever get to think about. We should be so lucky that it gets that big and we have that much time. But we're also thinking, well, we're learning a bunch of stuff here. There's no reason you couldn't apply this to different franchises too, like as you go.
So with this then, is it safe to say that we're all learning as we go, but at the same time, Dazzle Ship is that studio where artists can go and learn from you guys and grow together, or what is
Yeah,
it more?
I guess like how would it, like if Broadside is Clone X, then Dazzle Ship is Artifact, right? It's the company making the thing. Like we're making this world. The company had to have a name as a legal
An
entity. So,
umbrella,
like,
yeah.
that's it.
I
But
see.
like, where could it go? Yeah, we could do like, where's Dazzle Ship in 20 years' time? If Broadside's been a success, we'll always be growing Broadside. Like, trust me, I'm obsessed with, I'll never not be obsessed with Broadside. But like, yeah, what else could you do? Like, what other great IP could you apply the same formula to? And where could that go? Like those are definitely interesting questions as well. But those questions are, at least 5 years away from me personally. I can't think about anything else except Broadside. That's what this year's taught me.
That's cool. I'm gonna jump on to the next one.
Mhm.
I just thought about like this one. I just because obviously like chapters are minted out, and you mentioned the attention economy, right? And trying to get me into a reading and like a text format, like I know
Yeah,
I'm not alone in this, right? But I will suddenly go on Twitter or some, like literally the attention economy is terrible. It's terrible, really. But how I remedy it personally is I go in the car. I'm currently listening to all the chapters of June. I don't know if you know that
yeah,
series.
yeah.
Oh my God! Like right now, so I'm on like the seventh one, and I love it. I love it. Right? Is it possible for the current licensing rights to have something like the other audio version of these chapters in the future, or is that not at the table or
No, of
anything
course. I
today?
mean, yeah, we can do that. You can do that. Anyone can do that. They're under a CC4 license. Anybody can go and record them and make those available. It's definitely one of the things like we want to do.
Mm,
Um, it's not quite like the things we're focusing on are the things that we think will be absolutely world changing. And an audiobook of Broadsides are really cool. We should definitely do that. But like where we're focusing our time and the resources right now
mm.
is I can't say what we're doing just
But
yet.
yeah, a
But
small team, you have to focus on some. No, I get it. I know Dollars has YouTube, sorry, Twitter Spaces, guys, that you can go to his channel and actually do that. Um, yeah, so I might get in touch with him because I would love to turn that into something where
yeah,
you can
yeah.
listen to it in the car. That'd be awesome.
No,
And
look, we'll get there. Yeah.
we talked about a bit about the broadside bunker raves,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that like something where um so right now, right? I think one person has said, because I remember coming into one and there's the whooshing sound, so it's still a bit um but then I think there was one where they had Sambo was telling me he actually went into one and he loved it. Like I missed that one. Um but is the idea like you can rave in the broadside bunker with your avatar, your broadside avatar, and but then what's the barrier to that? Is it, do you need a good computer to do that, or are you guys thinking maybe at some point you could just fire up an app on your phone, like a standard
Mhm.
iPhone or something? What is your thoughts in that and the barrier to entry of joining
Yeah,
one? Because obviously in Twitter Spaces, right, it's relatively easy. You fire up Twitter, and there's the sound. You're connected.
right, right.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but yeah, go ahead if you
yeah.
have any.
It's like, yeah, if you're running a computer that's on the lower end, it might be hard to access
Mm,
any of the metaverse platforms. One of the reasons, like, we didn't pick Mona,
mm,
Neil Glitch and Athletic Method picked Mona, and I'm really glad they did, because Mona has been the most accessible, the most stable platform
platform, yeah.
that I've used. Like, yeah, it definitely, you hear your fan going on your computer sometimes, but it's way less. It's way less of a kind of energy suck than a lot of the other
Mm.
metaverse platforms, and I think that's just because, like, this is an early nascent space. You know, like back in the day, like, you know, all the games that our phones run now with no problem. Like, if you a computer 10 years ago would melt if you tried to play.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just like,
crazy how fast
yeah.
these things have gone. Oh, actually, this leads me to the point of where we are. Is would you say at the moment broadside is a niche at the moment because of, like, let's say to run the monoverse, it takes a certain number of computers, or to be where broadside is. At what point do you have it in mind to say, okay, well, we'll have more demand than 7,000 avatars,
Hmm.
and in which case, I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say here? Because right now
Yeah,
we're very closed. We're very closed. Like I feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
I feel like you see the same 100 people in spaces, and then most of them from batcows, some of them for VV or whatnot. Um,
yeah,
and obviously the Discord has its own life because it has its own people from actually different projects as well, not just you
yeah,
know
yeah.
But what are your thoughts on it being like niche at the moment? Because that's been brought up to me by someone, when I was asking questions around. I don't know. That's what is your thoughts
Yeah.
on that one? Yeah.
Yeah, look, there's definitely a niche. There's definitely a sort of community in Broadside that's very, very, very invested, and you see them everywhere, and that's great. Actually, like, we love that. You know, the real problem is not having that, right? Because then,
Mm.
like, what do you have if you do a project and you get 20,000 people buying it, and they're all like paper-handed degens who flip it the next day? You're good shit, right? Your
Yeah.
community is everything. Like, when I say community at all costs, that core community matters to me more than the next million people, which we're also thinking about with Broadside. Like, there are 3,000 traits that we designed for the Broadside collection.
Yeah. Broke OpenSea actually,
Broke
right?
OpenSea. There's 201 billion possible combinations of Broadsider. There's going to be more Broadsiders. Like, the things that we're thinking about next is, how do you make this super accessible? How does anyone come in to this space and just immediately get immersed in the entire world of Broadside, the story, the role playing, the game, the
Mm,
raves,
mm,
the we're getting all these musicians and game developers and influencers coming into the bunker to talk to the community there.
mm,
Because we had Board Elon in last week, who's got 1.9 million followers on Twitter, but he wants to talk to the Broadside community, because that level of engagement, like, if you go and look at some of your favorite influencers, how many likes do they get? How many retweets? How many replies do they get? Can they get 1,000 people to go to a rave in the metaverse every week? Mark Zuckerberg can't do that right now, apparently. So, like, I don't discount that. I really, like, value that we've got this very, very engaged core community. The things that they're doing, like, there's a couple of thousand people who are like, these things that we're doing together every week are
mm,
really fun. That's called product market fit in startup language.
Mm.
Once you've got that, you can build, you can invest in that, and you can scale it. And to me, that's what when I think about this, it's not that it's niche, it's that it's early, and we've cracked something that last year $120 billion of investment apparently couldn't do.
So, is it okay that if we just do a bit of a dive into the collection right now?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
because I don't know, I feel like this is something fun that we could do. Not too long, because you know me, I'll get lost in it. You know me, I love
Me
my
too. I
trades.
will too.
So let's go into broadside. I've got a couple of cheats that I'm gonna go and run through, and I think this is the most fun probably in the channel that we'll have. Looking at it with you. I don't think anyone's actually looked at it with you. So
No,
let's
that's
look at it
great.
together. The Matt Mason fade. Let's have a look at it.
Mhm.
So what is look at the floor for it. Tell me a bit about this.
Yeah, like me and Vector, like um, like we are like the co-founders of Broadside, but like we grew up together, like talking shit to each other, just like having fun, and that's what Broadside was. And when we were writing the traits together, we were throwing in all these examples, like the history of
This is
the
yours,
community.
right? This is your PFP at the moment, right? This one.
Yeah, no, I love the Matt Mason fade. The Matt Mason fade, like, okay, yeah, that does look like my haircut. Fine, let's put that in. There's a bunch. There's like a bunch of ones that are named. There's the Vector Dordali one. There's Gianni Vectorsace. There's all these like Vector ones in there, and they're actually one of ones. I think there's
Oh
one
yeah.
like yeah. There's a bunch of different ones. So like we deliberately like throughout the metadata, and like we shouted out influencers, people in the community in the metadata.
Oh, there's only three Matt Mason fades with that are VIPs. But yeah, no, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we just like yeah. There's so much that we just hid in there and did because like we didn't have to do that on the Met Day. We'd have made our lives a lot easier if we didn't.
Mm.
But like Broadside, like the point of Broadside is like we really wanted to be as creative and as imaginative as we can at every single level. Like so many people in the community are selling Broadside merchandise, like hoodies and t-shirts and great stuff. And they're like, when are you going to do official stuff? We're working on it, but the amount of thought and effort and the piece that we're going to create, like again, it's like we're going to do something that no one's seen in the
Mm.
world yet, because
So
that's how we feel we have to approach everything.
while we're here, because we talked about Kid Called Beast, right? And when they began, they were like, okay, there's 20 different districts that you go on to.
Mhm.
Um, how is it? How do you see factions in Broadside right now? So what I mean by that, I don't know if could you see my screen by the way at the moment?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I've got these cheek things, right, where I watch um you know all that's for sale right now and stuff
yeah,
like that. And I tell you what, man, I fell in love with aliens personally just because they're so
yeah,
crazy. And then I don't know if you were there, if you've heard about the space that run on from 7 p.m. and I was driving back.
yeah.
It was like 11 p.m. Like was that Sunday?
That
And
was
there was some crazy dude. No, I wouldn't say crazy, right? But he was like, yeah, aliens are real. This is like X and Y and Z, and you know it's taking its own life. I don't know if that's what you meant
yeah.
by like some of these things taking its own life.
No, that's
Um,
exactly it. Like the alien community in Broadside is like they're like
Shout out
really
to the alien community, baby.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that
I'm
is
part of
it.
that.
That's it. No, like there's a bunch of like if you look at it's funny that the aliens is the most obvious one, right? Or there's like the poopity scoop helmets.
Hey,
There's a couple.
there is that. Yeah. So let me show that. Yeah, there's the poopity scoop ones. Hope it shows.
Yeah, and there's factions like in Broadside the story. There's the skeleton crew team that we meet. Our hero is part of. There's the halfway crooks team that they're fighting against.
It's the
You know,
henchmen.
there's like a bunch of different Broadside teams that we came up with, and now I see people creating their own teams. Like they're buying
There we go.
gangs of Broadsiders and grouping them together, and it's like we don't want to put too much. Like I think with batcows, like we did a similar thing to Kid Called Beast. Like there's
Mm.
here's a map of Gotham, carve it up, boom, night
Mm.
in 10 different places. But like there's just that's a well-established piece of law in Batman, and Jim Lee really drove that and had that idea, and we were like, "Fuck yeah, this is great." And
Mm,
I love how Kid Cool Beast is doing it as well. With Broadside, like, it's like, okay, 2037 San Francisco, you've got this entire city, you've got SF, you've got Marin County, you've got the Bay, like, South City, and you've got the hills in Berkeley and all these different areas. We haven't really scratched the surface of how and why people might be in different places too much beyond how we're describing it in the story, mostly because we want to let people do a little bit of that themselves before we start getting really into it,
mm,
and before we've got the platform that we can do it on in a way that the community is driving it. But everything with Broadside was like, let's give people our version of the story, let's see what they do with it, and then let's double down on what's working. And
mm,
that's how we're thinking about the roadmap, the journey that we've got ahead of
mm.
us.
Yeah, you're sort of feeling it, and yeah, we're getting into the masses part at the moment. Let me just see if I've got everything already. I think we're pretty okay. We've mentioned everything about. Oh, so the only thing I would say is there any UK meetup soon? I know we kind of covered this.
Yeah, like we again, it's like we're trying to be really thoughtful about every single thing that we do,
Mm,
and how does Broadside show up in real life, and
mm.
where does Broadside show up?
Oh,
Uh,
actually, I want to say meetup soon, not just UK, right? Because that we have a lot of
yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah. So
everywhere else. Mm.
everywhere else, like I mean, it's funny enough. This morning I was making some plans with a big NFT event in Europe later this year that we're doing. The one we've announced already that we can talk about is Non Fungible Conference in Lisbon
Oh wow.
in June. The Broadside community is going to be there. Vector's doing a keynote. We haven't announced all our other plans for what we're doing at Non Fungible Conference, but the thing we're really thinking about everywhere we go is the bunker, is the parties. Like in Web3, there's a bunch of parties. Sometimes there's really good parties. More often than not, actually, the parties aren't quite as good as you'd like them to be. And coming
I
from, you
yeah.
know,
I know what you mean because you have to be there has to be a lot of you. Like a lot of you, like 30, 40 to be for it to feel like yes, this is like huge rather than there's a bunch of you and it's like, oh, it's like it's not as fun or whatever.
I mean,
Um,
it can be 1,000 of you, and it can be not very good, or it can
oh,
be 50 of you, and it can be amazing. It's just about what's the size of the room, what are you doing in there, what are the mechanics socially of this event,
hmm.
and the thing
So
we
it has
think
to
about
be well thought out. It has to be well
has
thought
to be
out.
well thought out. And with Broadside, it's like, all right, how do you do 3D bass in real life?
Yeah,
That's
I
the
guess
only
it
question
will have
we've
to
been
be a
asking.
party, right?
If
Okay.
Broadside's showing up, it has to be a party. And that doesn't mean, like, listen, but that's not the only way we show up. Like, I was in Miami in November. I saw a bunch of the members of the community. Like, I saw people in Broadside t-shirts. I was like, what the fuck? I haven't got a Broadside t-shirt yet. Like, I went over, I was like, what? And like, it was DLO and it was a bunch of people, and Dollars came down and met us and was like, no, the five of us went and got a pizza after
Oh,
the
that's
conference.
amazing.
And it was like
Yeah,
fucking amazing.
that
Like,
that sounds so
this
good.
is, there was, look, this is family to me. Like, people like Legacy and Steph and Nino, like the full Backhouse community. Like, I've broken bread with those people
Hmm.
and like can't wait to do it again. And like that's true. Like every time I speak to Rubius in the UK, it's like every time it comes to when we get a beer, when we get a beer, it's like, man, I want to get a beer with Rubius in the worst way. How are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? Because like if we're going to go there as Broadside, we got to show up and we'll go and get a beer with Rubius. But like, what are we doing? Right? Like it's always like we have to think about how
Of
do we go
course.
and apply these resources and reach more people because we know the community wants us to be thinking about that all the time, right? That's
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Again,
the
like
crux of all your question is great community, but okay, what else? And that's
what
how we're
else?
thinking too.
Yeah, no worries. We'll be tuned. I know people are like gonna go out their way to actually come together. Again, I'm conscious of time. Just that's all. But heard this rumor about dollar bones. What is this? What about? Again, you could say nothing, right? And we could just move on. But I'm just feel compelled to. If it's nothing, I've got another topic. I've got. But yeah, go ahead.
It's probably something, but that's all I can.
Probably something. Okay, cool. That's all I want. Um, so Salos, tell me like just a minute about Salos. I know that I did like a kind of video because I know people come from a closed ecosystem, so I was concerned that it was one of those Silas went into a bot, and then I did a whole write up, and then there was all that scare about um, Silas actually being a scam, like having it scammed and then being sold because the owner of that token granted access to.
What is Salos? So I have no idea what this is.
Oh, Silas, you're number one broadsider, Silas.
Oh, it's a broadsider called Salos. Okay,
Yes,
I
yes.
missed this entirely. Like you were talking about everything moves too fast in Web3. I didn't
Sorry.
even what. Oh, you talking about the crypto pump broadsider?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Oh, I didn't even know it was called
Sorry,
Salos.
I could cut this.
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah, yeah. I remember this now. No, I totally remember it. No, it was like it went to a weird wallet and into another wallet, and
Mm.
you. I remember you were the person like really on the case about what's happening. I don't know. You know more than I do. And like
No,
the
no, no.
last I heard was it seemed like it was a bit of a weird like transaction or bumpy ride where how it got to where it was going, but it
It
seemed like
got
it was
it.
legit.
Yeah, I feel like it come from a bot anyway. So even if it granted itself access to this weird other NFT collection,
Mm,
it feels like the bot probably owns that other collection anyway. So it was able to sell it off into, thankfully, someone that looks like um it's in good hands now. So we
yeah.
have been in that case just because we were chasing this thing, right? So I know that a few of the backhouse people, they wanted to get the number one broadsider that's
Mhm.
part licensed by a CryptoPunk, because it's historical. It's I
Yeah.
guess
I
him
want to get
getting
it.
yeah, I mean him getting partial royalties, right? Whenever there's a sale that happens. So
Whenever there's a sell that broadside, we send some Ethereum to Galbraith.
like again, I want to highlight that more than anything, right? It's
Yeah.
that's where all that drama came about. Um, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, that was like, yeah, that was, I don't know, like for me, like the thing about getting to work, like the thing about using CC0 and licensing the punk is like, I now consider Galbraith a friend. Like, I can't wait to meet him in real life.
I
I'm
think
so
so.
glad we, I'm so glad we did stuff with Rec Guys and we had OSF in the spaces. He was amazing. I can't wait to hang out with him. Like, that's how, like, every person, like, Eclectic Method, Neon Glitch, this community where we've been able to go and use people's art, whether it was full commercial rights or CC0, and they've become co-conspirators and friends and
Mm,
collaborators.
I
It's
honestly,
fucking amazing.
I would say the same. I follow Galbraith on, and we talked about what happened here, and we come to the same conclusion. Or I did a write up on it, and then now whenever he posts, like I just say good morning to him, and he says good morning to me, and I feel like
Yeah, it's
that was
great, man.
fucking great. GM,
Yeah.
GM, I can't explain it. I feel like I'm making these micro friends I've not, and then from the outside looking in, if you're not in Twitter
Mhm.
every day or whatever, it doesn't feel that way, but it does. It's genuine connections that you make, which is
This
great.
is the whole point. This is the thing I was saying earlier. Like, is it niche? Yeah, it's niche, but something is happening and it feels special to us the same way dubstep when it was 50 people, it was like, oh shit, there's something fucking weird going on here. And if you're in it, it's brilliant. And I don't think anyone else
And you can't,
gets it.
and no one could point their finger in it. Like my friends and
No.
family or whatever. I'm gonna do a thing with my sister this weekend. Like she's gonna enter Miss England or whatever, and I'm like, all right, let on stream. I'm gonna show you some batcows and then see what you like, and I'll tell you about this. And it's gonna be funny for the rest of us. Me showing someone who knows nothing about it, let alone. But yeah, yeah, I know. I think I get what you mean. I'm gonna finish up on Broadside because I have maybe I know like we're pressed for time and stuff, but I wanna sneak in like five backhouse questions.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
but before I wanna end it, like let's say I just wanna say, what are your current priorities for the next 6 months? I know you said you have a small team. Do you plan on hiring more people? I know
Mhm,
you've hinted on. Okay, I'm not gonna say this now. You have to watch the video, but you've hinted on a lot of things today. Um, but what's the current priorities for you now? Like I feel like you've been
mhm,
you transitioned in that role for a week, but I feel like there is something here that you've been busy as hell. You've had phone calls from people to say, oh, like, what's next? And obviously in the Twitter sphere, right? We're like, well, what's happening, right? So yeah, tell us what is the
mhm.
current priorities for Broadside in the next 6 months, and hell,
Yeah,
back health as well if you can.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so we'll do broadside first. So with broadside, scaling everything that's working. Parties are working. people getting together in a gamified space that's not like anything else is working. How do we scale that?
Mm.
That's going to require a team, that's going to require resources. Those are the things we're thinking about. Those are
Mm.
top of mind.
Okay.
Delivering on the roadmap, like the book.
The book
When,
first, of course.
how do we do that? When's the
How do
right
we break the
time?
Yeah, how do we break that bestseller list? Yeah, for sure.
No, it's how. It's also when. Like,
Mm.
will we do, like, do we wait,
Mm.
grow the community, and then do it, or do we do it straight after everyone's got all the chapters? And look, this will be a conversation with the community. But the number one thing I think we're doing is, like, we want Broadside to be one of the biggest franchises in the world, and we think it has that potential, and we see this community pushing it in all these directions. The metaverse is going to be where it grows, and we're building that. We're building that next, and that's going to be taking up most of our time. But the evolution of Broadside over the next 6 months is going to be like, it's not something that we necessarily had in mind when we started.
Mm.
We didn't realize we were doing this much this early, but things are accelerating faster. Opportunities are happening more quickly than we realize, and it's in this position where I think it can grow explosively. It may not, right? It's a startup. Like,
Mm.
that's every NFT project. These are startups that people are investing in.
Mm.
Um, some of them are going to go to zero, but certainly the early, like, all I can tell you is I was happy enough to quit my job over it.
And I know. For me it's like that is
Bullish,
insane.
you know.
Yeah, right.
I've never ever done this. I've never been this founder. I've never been I've never wanted to do that. I've always been like a C-level person helping the founder push something that's already going. I've
Mm.
never had the conviction about anything I've ever thought of or anything I've been involved to be like, oh, I'm going to go and do this. I had no choice at Broadside. It's obvious to me. It's like, this is going to be
The time is
huge.
now. The time is now. Yeah. Well, I can't wait. And thank you, Matt. Yeah, no, thank you for that. And yeah, all encouraging to hear. Okay. Just a little flavor of like sprinkled in this video. Because me, like I've been so deep into cows, and admittedly, I've yet to learn about Web3 and Broadside, and this is where my journey is. And I feel like I've
Mhm.
branched off from that, and I feel like Broadside's gonna help me with it. So, guys, if you haven't already, if you're on the sideline and you're watching this video, um, it's deep. Web3 is deep. You know, so and it takes time. It's not like you see a pretty picture, you flip it, and this is what I get right now. I feel like this is gonna be a journey regardless of how we feel about current market conditions. Okay, so jumping and flicking through just because I've got this opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
um, what is the main target for cows? And because I remember it was 200,000, and because of
Mhm.
the Matrix being 100,000, obviously it's a
Yeah.
cheaper price. It minted out, but that was a bullish market. And then when we came to the bear market, things have slowed down, and suddenly we've seen that from 11,544, that this is the core group really of Batman fans almost, right? Because you've pushed the wheel out and whatnot. What
Mm.
are your thoughts on mass adoption for cows? Hell, Broadside.
Mm.
And what are ways that we could do it? Because we've seen like a DigiDaiQ, like big ass commercial, and like, as you said, there's billions of dollars that's been invested in this,
Mm.
but all we're seeing so far is it looks like, I don't know, just grandiose things. Sorry, over to you.
Yeah.
What
No.
how do you think we'll get there?
Yeah. Look, I think with the cows is the core. I don't like you can't have mass adoption with 11,000 NFTs, and we're not making any more cows. There's not going to be 200,000 cows.
No.
There's not going to be 100,000. There's going to be the amount of cows that exist now is the amount of cows that exist. But like, if you look at how DC is working, like the way that DC is growing, the mass adoption with DC is DC3. Like, the
Yes.
fact that DC is building this ecosystem, is putting 83 years worth of their craft and storytelling and art on the blockchain. the fact that Jim Lee is involved directly in that, the fact that Andy Pease is involved directly in that. Like these are the people that run DC Comics.
That Jim Lee
Right?
space was just crazy. And I think, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've said this before. Like working with Jim Lee on COWLS was a joy for two reasons for me. Like I'm sad I'm not on calls with them every week, but I was on calls with him every week at Palm, right? And that was exciting for me for two reasons. One is because if Jim Lee, I remember like a couple of times during the sort of making of the COWLS, he's like, "Oh wait, guys, like that eye is wrong. You're trying to do the Adam West eye. Look," and he like pick up a napkin and just be like, "Boom, boom, 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 boom," and draw. And I'm like, oh my God. Like watching anyone in the world who is the
Living
best
legend.
person in the world at what they do is just a joy to watch. And
Yeah.
Jim Lee is the best person in the world at what he does. And so like being able to work with him on that, I was always like, I can't believe I get to watch this incredible talent work. But then
And
the
get
other
paid. And get paid for it.
and get paid. But then the other thought that would immediately go from mine is I can't believe he's doing this with us every week in Web3. Like this is
Mm,
what mass adoption looks like.
mm.
Is when
Oh
you've
my
got the
God.
titans, people like Jim Lee being like, yeah, I'm going to put the most valuable currency in the world is time. And
Mm.
the poorest people are the most successful people. They have the least time. Jim Lee does not have any time. Trust me on that. Like it's hard to get his calendar. He's putting time into Batcowl. He's putting time into DC3, right? Directly. He's the person thinking about how do we make this rare comic look rarer? Like the original ads. Like, how do we do this? He understands the mind of the comic collector and the mass DC fan. Like DC's on a journey. It started with you guys. It started with 11,000 people. It's expanded now. There's more people. It's like, 7,000, 5,000, 10,000 drops every week. They're going to more people. There's a big audience of people that DC's got to grow in. They're being very thoughtful, very methodical about how they're doing it. Is it going as fast as the COWLS wanted to? No, none of
No.
us can ever do anything as fast as the COWLS want to. I know that, but like it's going as fast as it should because we've
And
got to reach a bigger audience and they've got to build trust and show them, this is a cool new space and show them things they've never seen before.
yeah, like Hawkman and everyone else, they post these Easter eggs in Twitter, and I'm sure you see it. They
Yeah, I
tag
love
you,
Fortman.
right? And you're like, yeah, and you're like, yeah, big up, dude. I speak to him in a chat every day, but like
Yeah,
they come in, right? And these Easter eggs are we're so goddamn early. Like he was probably the only person who noticed it, and then he posted it, right? But then years down the line, they'll be like, okay, that's how it began, right? This is how the Web3 DC3 ownership of this
yeah.
new comic type of new asset class began. So yeah, I know I believe so, and DC3 was absolutely huge. Um, I'm gonna ask this question because I feel like you're the one who's gonna understand me more than anyone else. Do you think the cows could be ever been opened up by DC to allow partial commercial or franchising rights, much like the CCO? I feel like when you released Broadside, I feel like you opened my eyes personally to
Mm.
the potential of Web3. But now, obviously, being DC, being the big wheel, being harsher that way because it's their brand, right? But if there was a way, like a franchising way, where we could maybe give back royalties, like if I've ever put my batcowl on a beer, do you think that's something that's gonna? Was that ever in talks, or was that always set in stone, or is there a ray of hope for that to happen?
Look, the thing I always say with NFTs is like nothing's set in stone, right? It's on the blockchain, which is composable, so you can change things. So yeah, it's possible. It's not going to happen next week. I can tell you that, right? Like, don't. It's not like I'm not like soon. No, but like, yeah, it's everything is possible, and it's definitely not something that is really being talked about right now. At least I've not been in conversations where that's been discussed recently. But the thing about DC and about Warner Brothers more broadly, like the person who really sort of spearheaded the COWLS project at Warner Brothers was Josh Hackbarth on the Warner Brothers side, and like Warner Brothers, and then Josh works with the DC team, which is part of Warner Brothers, and then on the DC team, Don Folletti, Tony Shin, Andy Pease, Sarah Wright, like an amazing team of people. But like Josh was the first senior executive at a big Hollywood studio that had the word NFT in his job title. That tells you something about how early they were. Like when a company is starting to structure itself around something new, like that tells you all you need to know about, are they taking this seriously? And then I think the thing that Warner Brothers really has done since is now I think every studio has a like an NFT person or a like an NFT, a Web3 SWAT team or whatever. And we're working, work with and know a lot of those teams, brilliant people doing great things and thinking about being very thoughtful about their approach. Warner's did that earlier, and now Warner's is at this place where, yeah, there's like people with the word in it. There's people who work on Web3 at Warner's, but Jim Lee works on Web3 at Warner's. Andy Pease, the general manager of DC, works on Web3 at DC. Like personally with me every week directly. Like I know how seriously they take Web3. So like, look, like, can I tell you the roadmap for batcows in the next year? Can I tell you when
I'm
XYZ
not
is?
gonna ask these questions.
I can't. What I can tell you is, because it's public, look at the structure of this team. Look at how much time and effort and energy the senior people are putting into Web3 initiatives there. That tells you everything you need to know.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna dive into the last three questions. Just because it's like either people have been like, oh, why has that been missed out, or there's not been too much focus. And I'm not gonna ask you to spoil it, or you can say no. But is there anything? So they said like January they were talking about how
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna be executed finally. We've seen Hero do crafting, and then the whole community went nuts on crafting, and
Mm-hmm.
then the possibility of burning a cow, which I really hated, by the way, but the
Mm-hmm.
possibility of burning certain NFTs to make it more scarce, turning it into something new. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is there what is your main thought on how the overdrive the possibilities of how overdrive works? And none of this is going to be the truth, by the way. It's like, but in your head, is there what's the talks been like, where have we been stuck? Because obviously a lot of people have been shall we say, they've been stocking it or whatever, and they're like, where is it? Because we've been promised it. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I thought I'd cover it while I got the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, look, I'll say this before. We've definitely said this. We've said this previously a number of times. Overdrive got delayed so we could build DC3, which was no small thing, right?
No.
And that's like, and it's about, again, it's about priorities. Like what's going to make the most sense to focus on. It's like with Broadside, it's like, could we do the audio book, or should we
Yeah.
scale this crazy thing that's working that we think is game changing?
Okay, that's it.
It's the
That's
same
it,
thing
Matt.
we see, right? Yeah,
That's all you need to say about that. Because again, to me that makes perfect sense. If there's bigger wheels in motion we're not seeing, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard.
yeah.
It's kind of easy to go nitpicking if you can't see the big picture. So okay, there's been the Senor Rubius kind of
Mhm.
conspiracy where um it's a conspiracy. He's gonna kill me. When I say that, he says that, all right, these boxes are free. They've been, were they the tools to reach more people? Because we need the army, don't we? So were these the tools to get the army? And I mean, a comics already came out of it. He
Mm.
then theorized that potentially there could be collectibles coming that are, representing the Harley villain, the like one of Harley's pets. Because
Mhm.
is that something possible? And then, or is that, am I spitballing here? Is there more to come with the boxes? You could say yes or no, and we could just move on. But I just thought I'm not gonna be doing this video service if there's any. Do you know anything about that? Can you say anything about that? Go.
Yeah, look, anything's possible with, again, because we've got like, you can always reach back and give something new utility. You can take an asset you've already released and use it for something else. Like, yeah, don't forget about the Harley boxes. Don't forget about the fandom NFTs. Don't forget about the charms. Like, these are just ingredients now that are out there. And again, it gets back to the team. Jim Lee's thinking about this stuff every day. Caitlin Burns is thinking about this stuff every day. Elise
Mm,
Coulter, Stray Schrader, like the full
picture.
DC creative team. Andrew Ward. There's people thinking about this every day. It's the only reason. If that wasn't the case, I would not have stepped away from the project to go and do Broadside. But I know it's in good hands, and you're working with people like the most talented people in the world who are the best at what they do across comics, Web3, storytelling, thinking about this. So
Okay,
yeah,
that's good enough.
anything's possible, and like don't count any asset you get from this team. The story's never finished.
Okay, last two questions, and then we're gonna wrap this.
Mhm.
Are we revving up for a game in the future for both Broadside and COWLS? Now I know that
Mhm.
we've gone nuts on Batsuit and all these network accessories which people pay good money for today. Um, I guess are we all revving up for a? And again, you can say that like you could just say yes or no for cows, or you could
Mhm.
say watch the space. But I've also heard talks about a game in Broadside. So am I getting
Mhm.
close, or am I going wild? I know that they said that the AAA game, because I
Mhm.
remember there was this post. This is a AAA game project when it just first launched, and now it's being saying, well, actually, don't expect that this year because, I suspect a lot of it has to do with DC3. But I'm gonna
Mm.
shut up here and tell me
Yeah,
where
so
are
the
we?
original, yeah, that tweet, because a bunch of people retweeted that, like 20 people retweeted me. I was like, oh, they're in a space talking about this. But
Yeah.
if you read the tweet, what I said was AAA Avatar project.
Oh, Avatar. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of these cows are cows that are metaverse ready. You can wear them in Snapchat. They're coming from a major brand. It's a multi-million dollar project. It's got a multi-year roadmap with no end in sight. It's not a 2 year roadmap. We rolled out 2 years of stuff at launch
Hmm.
that we were going to do. Um, like, I think like all is DC revving up for. You can take out the word the game and just put the future, and the answer is yes, right? Like again, it gets back to how are they structuring, who's working, who's putting time into it, and who are the people's time are the most important people in the company putting time into this. If the answer is yes, that's all I think you need to know about what they might do in future. Are we revving up for a future with cows? Like I mean 100 million%. With Broadside, look, the Broadside story is is essentially a roadmap that we're sort of following, and three things happen. It starts with a group of kids playing a game of capture the flag. They figure out how to hack that game and start making their own objects and their own NFTs and their own armor and their own weapons, and how to buy and sell them to each other and remix them and do all kinds of crazy things with them. And they do that, and the game grows exponentially. And then the big evil company that controls the game comes down on them like a ton of bricks. An army of robots attacks them, and suddenly this is no longer a game, and they're in this big open world with all the skills and the weapons and the armor that they and the team that they've amassed, and they're in this bigger open world fighting this big team of world robots. If that's not a great roadmap, I don't know what is.
Hey, I'm sitting here like just waiting, which feels like every day feels like a year. To close off, I feel like you're part of the still the consultancy team in Backhouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Broadsides has come in, and you've taught us a few things. You're teaching me every day what is Web3, what is the legacy of what you're teaching me, and I appreciate you, Matt, and thank you, Vector and the team. I appreciate everyone so much.
Likewise, man.
I've
You're teaching us, man. Like you don't realize, like we don't know shit. No one knows anything about Web3. We're learning from you guys and what you guys want.
so as a I feel like what's happening now is you're still in this consultancy role for cows, and I feel like Broadside is leading that charge, and then from that experience that you're getting, Palm is looking and saying, "What can you teach us about web like OpenSea and Web3, Matt?"
Mm.
Um, I guess what am I trying to say is here is so for one, um, this is actually a two-pronged question. One is for cows first. is um oop, let's transport ourselves into the future. What would day one for OpenSea for backhouse look like in a month after? So I'm gonna say what I feel might happen. I feel like all this hype about the imaginary whales making us rich in day one is, for me, wouldn't be true because, well, unless something happened that I don't know. But I feel like we're gonna settle into this stable, modest floor, of if we're talking about pricing. But after a month, I feel like if it does deliver what it says it would, it might just be one of the points where, gosh, like I wish I picked up more. You know, that kind of feeling. Is
Mhm.
what do you say? Like, is there anything in your mind that would say like, and undoubtedly, cows are, knowing what you know, like what can you say about this future? Like what can you see? What can you see like that's tangible? And I will
Mhm.
bring this back to Broadside to finish our video off because the video was about
Yeah, no,
primarily
no,
about
no worries.
Broadside.
I'm happy to talk about cows and broadside. I'm actually going to bring it back to broadside right now to answer this question about cows
Okay,
because you
wow.
reminded me. You said to me, you DM me, you said, I heard someone on the broadside team say on Spaces, we don't give a fuck about the floor. The only floor we care about is the dance floor in the rave bunker. And that what Charlie meant when he said that was we're building real utility. Like if you just again, it's like if you think about a floor price, your decisions are going to go up and down with that floor price, and you're going to crash and burn. And time and again, like 99% of NFT projects don't make it because inexperienced founders come in and they do exactly that. They start listening to the flippers and the paper hands and the traders who don't give a fuck about the long-term success of that project. And look,
Mm,
I'm not, no offense to traders, like
mm,
that is part of this ecosystem, but those people will carry you from day to day, but not from month to month or year to year if they're coming in to sell in short term. The same thing's true at any company. Any company traded on the stock market that's making decisions based on the stock price is probably making bad decisions. Like this is a problem with Web3, but it's a problem with capitalism, right?
mm,
Like good companies make long-term decisions. You have to keep the shareholders happy day to day too. But if you start thinking like that, if you're a CEO and you're like constantly a slave of the stock price, you're going to make the wrong decision. You're going to trip over. It's
mm,
true in NFT projects. It's true for batcows. It's true for Broadside. So with batcows, with everything that is happening with DC3, the focus is on growing the offering to fans of DC. If those fans happen to be Web3 fans, that's fantastic. If they're not, if they never had an NFT in their life before and they come in and they want to buy a comic on DC3 or they buy some new NFT from DC that we're doing this year, incredible. That's great. Like the goal is to grow the market. Don't worry about the floor price. That will take care of itself if you do the thing here that you meant to do. Sustainable real value for fans. That's the only thing you should focus on. If you do that, it's not that the floor price is not a KPI or that volume doesn't matter or that any of these statistics that if you're trading, you absolutely should be looking at day to day, laser focus. It's not that they shouldn't matter to founders. It's that like the floor price doesn't matter as much as your dance floor. Who's on it? Why are they there? Who else they bring in? Are they having fun? If you do those things, those are the leading indicators. The floor price is a lagging indicator.
mm.
So that's where the alpha is. That's where you should focus. I think that's true of any NFT project.
So, as as someone who is here, because I personally, I ran to secure those traits, not to hold, and I'm still holding. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what is what are your thoughts now as to like what can you say that? So obviously there's a lot of bubbling, bursting news that that you're always dying to tell us, and it's one of those things where, whenever people do an AMA, they laugh with each other, and they're like, "Oh my God, like I wish we can say something." And I remember that because I've been dropped on alpha, and I'm like, I'm fucking dying right now. Like I can't sleep. Like I wish I can share it with somebody. What
Mm.
are your closing thoughts? Like how should we navigate? What is what is the healthy way of navigating it? Yeah, just to close off, and
Of
what
Web
could what
three
could
generally, of like, what do you
yeah,
mean?
Web3, the Twitter Spaces, Broadside,
Mm,
and from you, what can we expect now that you're full time?
yeah.
I guess that's a good closing thought, right?
Um, expect a world. Like, we're building a world, and it will get a lot bigger. It will get a lot more fun. The fidelity will increase and increase. The possibilities will increase and increase. Like, that's the plan, at least, right? That's what we're trying to do. But yeah, just that I've been able to do it for a week, full time, and just announcing I'm doing this full time.
Mhm,
The amount of inbound interest
mhm,
and the amount of plans that then suddenly accelerated. Um, yeah, I'm still excited. I've got no regrets. A week later, at least.
mhm,
So yeah, like, expect a lot. I'm sure. Look, we'll make mistakes. We've
mhm.
made mistakes in the past. Like, no project is perfect. We're building in public. We're always being transparent. But expect a lot from us. Hold us to high standards, because we're trying to build something game changing.
Thank you so much, Matt. And if you haven't already, guys, yeah, just sort of closing thoughts. Yeah, Matt, you legend, and we want to hear a lot more from you. Thank you for coming on. Yeah, and yeah, looking forward to everything else. Bones up.
Bones up,
Thank you.
Prez. Thank you,
Bones
man.
up.
Really appreciate
Bones
it.
up, man. We're here. Let's go.
Appreciate
Let's
you all,
build it
man.
together. See you
All
guys.
right. Thank you. Take care. Bye.